Look at these brand names. Google any of them. They have no website, no team page, no customer service, no address you could visit. Most of them were registered weeks before the listing went live. Amazon gave them a customer's choice badge and ranked them above companies that have been selling for decades. All these brands belong to active sellers on Amazon, and more than half of them are now based in China. Which brings us to the main problem. Amazon is not an American store that sells Chinese product. Amazon is a Chinese marketplace dressed to look American. I know what you're gonna say. Why would Amazon let this happen to its own platform? What's the point? Well, the answer is uncomfortable. It's all about money. Amazon doesn't sell products anymore. Amazon is a landlord. Every Chinese factory that opens a seller account is a new tenant paying rent. The more tenants flood in, the more they have to spend on ads to outbid each other, the more Amazon collects. They built the pipeline, recruited at Chinese trade fairs, and removed every barrier between a factory in Shenzhen and a prime member in Ohio. In this video, I'll show you how this system is built, who's paying the price for it, and why Amazon can undo it without killing the machine that prints half of its money. That's exactly why I created this channel, to talk about the things people get wrong because the mainstream media covers half of the story and never follows the money. This channel is where I share what I see from the inside. If that sounds useful to you, subscribe. You won't get this anywhere else. 10 years ago, buying something on Amazon worked like this. A company in Portland or Manchester found a factory in Guangdong. They flew there, walked the production line, negotiated a price, ordered 5,000 units with their logo on it. They shipped the containers to their own warehouse, handled quality control, wrote the product listing, answered customer emails, dealt with returns. When something went wrong, a real person in a real office picked up the phone. The product was made in China, everybody knew that. But somebody in the West owned the relationship with the customer. That model is dead. Around 2015, Amazon launched something called the Global Selling Program. The idea was to let manufacturers from anywhere in the world list and sell directly on Amazon, no middleman required. On paper, it was open to everyone. In practice, the entire effort pointed at one country, China. Amazon had opened offices in Shenzhen. They sent recruitment teams to the Canton Fair twice a year. More importantly, they hosted the Amazon Global Store Sellers Summit in Zhejiang province. That's where they trained Chinese manufacturers on how to create an Amazon listing, register a brand, and ship pallets straight into Amazon warehouses on US soil. They even launched a lending service so Chinese sellers could borrow money to scale their Amazon operations. But the real unlock was FBA, Fulfillment by Amazon. The factory ships a container to Amazon's warehouse. Amazon stores it, packs it, delivers it with a Prime badge, and handles the return if anything goes wrong. From the customer perspective, there is zero difference between buying from a century-old American brand and buying from a factory in Shenzhen. Chinese sellers represented 26% of top sellers on Amazon US. Today, it's more than 50% and Amazon is still accelerating. Over the last 2 years, the number of Chinese sellers making over $1 million on the platform grew 55%. Those passing 10 million grew 60%. The same year, they launched Amazon Whole, a separate storefront built specifically for low-cost Chinese products. They rolled out supply chain services designed for Chinese manufacturers who don't want to deal with logistics at all. Factories don't need Western brands anymore, which brings us to the question I asked in the intro of this video. Why would the biggest e-commerce company on earth deliberately flood its own platform with factories that undercut the brands its customers used to trust? Get in Amazon's shoes for a second. When a seller lists a product on Amazon, the company doesn't have to deal with any of the problems retailers face every day. Amazon doesn't even care if the product sells or sits in a warehouse for months, because the seller is paying storage fee either way. All Amazon does is collect rent, and the rent is steep. A standard 15% referral fee, FBA fulfillment fee, and of course, storage fees that climb if your product doesn't move fast enough. Last month, a new 3.5% fuel surcharge popped up on top of all FBA fees, but don't worry, Amazon calls it temporary. Add it up, and Amazon keeps close to 50 cents of every dollar a third-party seller earns. That number was about 33 cents in 2016. It's been climbing every year since. Now, multiply that by the scale of what's happening. In 2025, Amazon seller service fees generated $172 billion. Advertising brought in another $68 billion. That's $243 billion from the marketplace alone. AWS, the cloud business that Wall Street analysts obsess over, made less. And here's where the Chinese seller flood becomes Amazon's favorite feature. Every new seller who enters the platform has to advertise to get visibility. You can have the best product on Amazon and nobody will ever see it if you don't buy ads, because the first 4 or 5 results on any search page are sponsored. Talk to almost any mid-sized Amazon seller today and they'll tell you the same thing.
Their margins are being absolutely squeezed and everything just feels like on Amazon is a bit like pay to play.
More sellers means more competition for those ad slots, higher bids, and so more revenue for Amazon. It's an auction where Amazon owns the house and where every Chinese factory that opens an account is a new bidder driving prices up for everyone else. Amazon figured out years ago that being the landlord is better than being the shopkeeper, and the moment they understood that, the incentives flipped. Quality of the catalog stopped being the priority. Now it's all about volume, because every new seller, whether they're selling something great or something terrible, pays the same rent. The Chinese factories were the best tenants Amazon ever found. They fill the shelves with millions of products, they pay all the fees, they bid against each other for ad space, and when customers complain about quality, it's the seller's problem, not Amazon's. There's just one thing this model doesn't produce: trust. You need to understand how these platforms actually work before you use it. And that's what this channel is about. How money moves, how Asia operates, and what nobody explains in the mainstream media. Hit subscribe if you want more of this. On Amazon, you can't touch a product and inspect the packaging. The only thing standing between you and a bad purchase is a review section. Stars and comments from strangers. That's the entire trust infrastructure of a $3 trillion company. So, when hundreds of thousands of sellers entered the platform with no brand history and no presence anywhere outside of Amazon, they all hit the same wall. Nobody buys a product with 0 reviews, and building real ones takes months. So they found the solution: something faster, cheaper, and technically illegal: fake reviews. The solution was so obvious that an entire industry sprang up to provide it. Fake review brokers operate like freelance agencies. A seller pays between $5 and $10 per review. The broker recruits real people who place a real order, receive the product, leave a 5-star review, and get reimbursed for the purchase plus a fee. To Amazon's detection system, it's a nightmare. It looks like a normal transaction, but the reviews are completely fake. By 2025, the operation had reached a scale that's hard to wrap your head around. Amazon blocked hundreds of millions of suspected fake reviews last year. They shut down over 100 broker websites. They work with Chinese law enforcement on more than 70 raids against counterfeit and review fraud networks. But it keeps going because the math still works. A fake review costs a seller $10. A product that climbs from page 3 to page 1 because of those reviews can generate thousands in sales. As long as the reward outweighs the risk of getting caught, sellers will keep paying. The badge that says Amazon's Choice sits right next to these listings. Customers read it as a stamp of approval, as if Amazon personally tested the product and recommends it. Amazon's own documentation says it's an algorithmic label based on price, availability, and shipping speed. It says nothing about who made the product, where it was made, whether the reviews are real, and whether the brand behind it will exist next quarter. A factory in Shenzhen that opened its seller account 8 weeks ago can carry the same badge as a company that's been selling on Amazon for a decade. The system that was supposed to help you decide what to buy became the system that helps sellers decide what you will buy. Amazon knows this, and to their credit, they're spending serious money trying to fix it. Raids, lawsuits, domain seizures, counterfeit investigation. Billions are spent to contain the fraud economy growing on the platform. In 2025 alone, Amazon seized and destroyed 15 million counterfeit products worldwide and blocked hundreds of millions of fake reviews. In October, they started transmitting detailed seller data to the Chinese tax authorities: revenue, transaction history, identity, bank accounts. For years, a significant number of Chinese sellers had been under-declaring their income, which let them operate on margin that no tax-compliant Western seller could match. They were subsidized by tax evasion. Now, the Chinese tax bureau is showing up. Sellers would dodge taxes for for years have three choices: declare their real income and raise their prices to absorb the cost, keep lying and risk penalties that could shut them down, or leave Amazon entirely. It's the first time a structural force is pushing back against the pricing advantage that fueled the entire Chinese seller wave. And that creates a tension Amazon will never talk about publicly. Every cheater they ban, that's one less tenant paying rent. Amazon is trying to clean up a system that it profits from keeping dirty. It's a problem they're managing quarter by quarter, hoping the trust doesn't collapse before the revenue does. Temu launched in the US in September 2022. Within a year, it was the most downloaded shopping app in America. The pitch was almost insulting in its honesty. Same Chinese factory products with no fake Western brand name on the box. Just the product at something close to the factory price shipped from China. Temu looked at Amazon model and stripped away the bullshit. No Amazon choice badge pretending to guarantee quality, no illusion that you're buying from an American store. You know exactly what you're getting, cheap products from Chinese factories. And to be fair, millions of consumers knowingly accept the trade-off. They know the product may not last, but when the price difference is 70%, trust suddenly matters a lot less. Shein did the same thing with fashion years earlier. Factory to consumer with no middleman. If you sell on Amazon, I'm not telling you anything you haven't already experienced. You're not Amazon's customer anymore. Now you're the product. We talk to e-commerce entrepreneurs every day at Statrys. Those who opened their Amazon store 5 or 6 years ago are generally doing fine. They entered the market when the rent was still cheap, grew their business, and can now afford to pay their ads. Those starting today are hitting a wall unless they have a significant ads budget. Their product sits on page 8 because they can't outbid sellers who've been spending on ads for years. The barrier to entry on Amazon in 2026 looks nothing like it was even 3 years ago, and most new sellers figure that out too late. The entrepreneurs who survived this figured out that Amazon is a channel, not a business. They built an audience somewhere else, an email list, a community, a following, a website that generates its own traffic. They know Amazon is just for distribution. The moment your entire business depends on a platform that takes 50% of your revenue and can bury your listings overnight, you don't have a business. You have a lease, and the landlord can raise the rent whenever he wants. Amazon spent 20 years building the most trusted shopping experience on the internet. Then they turned it into a Chinese marketplace and charged everyone a premium to pretend it was still the old Amazon. Whether that's genius or self-destruction probably depends on how long consumers keep paying the markup. Temu is betting they won't. Amazon is betting they will. One of them is going to be right. Good luck for the one that is wrong. I make 2 videos a week about money, Asia, and international business. No fluff, no sponsor, no 10 steps to passive income. If that's the kind of content you like, hit subscribe. You won't get that anywhere else. If you've sold on Amazon or if you stopped selling on Amazon, I want to hear your story. Drop it in the comments. See you in the next video.